Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sound Waves, powered by Sound Cove Labs. I'm Rod Petrosh, the founder of Sound Cove here in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's great to have you with us today. On Sound Waves, we always dig into services businesses that are scaling smart with marketing, systems, and automation, and we have conversations about that. Today, we are talking with Sierra Olmstead out of Denver-based company. Her company's called A Move Handled with Care. Hey, Sierra, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Let's dive in. Why don't you tell us your backstory? What led to the start of A Move Handled with Care?
Yeah. So growing up, I kind of always had this entrepreneurial spirit. My both of my parents were entrepreneurials. My dad owned restaurants and was in the oil business for some time, and then my mom actually worked in the restaurants with my dad, and then she ended up starting like a farm to table company even before like farm to table was a thing. She used to sell herbs out of the back of her trunk to restaurants. So I remember like I was always a part of that, and I just remember that. And so growing up, I just had different career paths, but I knew somewhere along the lines I wanted to have my own thing. And I was working in senior living here in Denver at a retirement community doing marketing and sales. And so I met the two gals who were the original founders of the company. They started it kind of as like a post retirement thing, just for something to do, kind of give back to the community. And so they would move my residents in, and we just became friends. And one day they said, we're kind of at this transition point where we're ready to either kind of close our doors, sell, because the company's really starting to get some legs, but I don't know if we have that energy. So I think you should buy our business. And so through a whole channel of things, because at the time I was actually pregnant with my second child, and I was like, great, this sounds good. I'm going to have a baby. Let's buy a business. Like, nothing will go wrong. And so the ladies that I bought it from were amazing, and just the whole process worked out perfect. The timing of everything worked out with having my daughter and buying the company. And yeah, it's just flourished. That was back in 2015. And so, the company starts to take off, it really starts to grow. And then 2018, I ended up hiring an assistant, and that assistant is now my business partner. She worked as my assistant, and then just ended up really immersing herself in the company. And then in 2003, she had approached me and was like, hey, I really would love to come in. I really think this company can do a lot more, and I'd love to be on the ownership side of that. And so she ended up coming in, and so now it's the two of us. Paige Raven is her name, and the two of us run the company.
And senior living is a hot topic around the country. So it's probably a very good time to be involved with it. Why don't you talk to us about your mission overall, and how do you make it real day to day, especially in a high stress category of moving and downsizing?
Yeah, so really our mission for the company is really to help, seniors. They don't really like the word seniors, so we kind of go more into like retirees, but really anybody that is in a downsize situation, really take that downsize and make it a really personable approach that really allows them not to have a lot of stress around moving, because downsizing and moving are just stressful in general. And the moving side, it's stressful because it's just your stuff, it's a lot going on, but it's the downsizing, and it's not so much the physical, it's the emotional stress that people go through, because it's years of things, it's years of collecting, it's the like things that were, you can't get rid of that because grandma'd be rolling in her grave and it's been in the family forever. And so this is where move management really comes in and helps people tackle the emotional side of downsizing so that people aren't paralyzed. That's the thing, is people just get so paralyzed by their stuff, and that they don't end up making this move that either needs to happen for, whether it's a triggering event that made the move happen or just a personal choice that's making the move happen. So many times people are just like, well, I can't do it because I'm too paralyzed. But this is where we can come in and almost be more of a counselor in some regards while doing the physical work for them and helping them figure out, what are we going to take? What are we not going to take? How are we going to move it? Who's going to move it? Where is it going to go? Who's going to get it? all of those logistical back end pieces that really bring all of this in together. We're kind of like, just that quarterback project manager. Our best analogy is like we're the duck on top and we're like this, but our feet are under here going like this, trying to, pull all the pieces in and get everything to where they need to go.
And what niches do you serve? Obviously, the retiree or maybe 55 plus, if you will, residential. Do you do commercial? How do you decide where you play?
Yeah, so our primary focus of the company is with retirees, is in that downsize situation. But we also service traditional residential. So anybody from a first time home buyer to just a young family or just two professionals running their lives that just don't have the time to pack and move and, handle all of those logistics. We have gotten into some commercial spaces as well. We've gotten some government contract of moving resident occupied buildings if there's like construction going on or if there's been flooding or damages or things like that. We have done a couple office moves in the commercial space. I will say that's not quite our specialty just because if it's a pretty straightforward move, we can handle it. But sometimes there's too much with IT and kind of the inner workings of a business that we don't necessarily have that back end knowledge. But if it's a pretty straightforward office move, as far as like this stuff just needs to get from A to B, then we can easily do that as well. But really, that senior retiree is our primary focus that we work on.
And the difference of hiring a regular mover, could you just elaborate? Is it the consultation as well? Like, why not just, I'll call a moving company?
Yep. So that is really where we differ so much. People put us into the moving industry so much, but there's so much. I mean, first off the bat, like you said, the consultation process, usually call a mover and say, hey, I'm moving from this location to this location, square footage to square footage. And the mover is going to say, great, I can send out 3 guys in one truck or 3 guys in however many trucks. It's going to be X amount of dollars per hour, and we can probably get it done in 10 hours. And so you're like, great, that sounds perfect. Well, what movers don't necessarily take into consideration is everything else. So that's where a move manager, like we're going to come in right off the bat. We're never going to go into a property sight unseen. We're always going to come out, do a complimentary consultation, and look, because your 2,000 square feet and my 2,000 square feet are totally different because I might have squirreled away everything possible into cupboards and closets and cabinets, as where your 2,000 square feet might be absolutely bare. And so this is where that project manager comes in, because movers are just, okay, I'm going to take your stuff from A to B. That's it. As where I'm going to manage your project. I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at how much packing do you need? What kind of services do you need help with? If you are downsizing, what are you doing with what's not going with you? Where is it going to go? Is it going to go to trash, donation? Are we going to sell it? Is it going to family members? Does it have to go across state? Are they in state? All of those things. And then obviously as well as the logistics of packing, moving, and unpacking. And we're going to manage the movers on, hey, I want you to load the truck this way because we're going to be unpacking. So I want to be able to unpack the kitchen while you're placing furniture. And then right when that curio cabinet gets landed, I'm going to already have the boxes for the curio cabinet to start unpacking. So it's just a much more efficient way of hiring someone to be the project manager of a move. Unless you move all the time, people don't understand actually how complex moving really is. And I think that is where the stress comes in, because if you don't have the quarterback behind you helping manage the process, this is just where, on the field, everyone's running around and nobody knows where the ball is going to go. And then it gets dropped and dropped and dropped. But when you have that quarterback that you can be like, you need to be here and you need to be there, and this needs to doing all that project management. So you're going to pay more than just hiring traditional movers, but the level of stress and the level of your own personal time that you're going to gain back. I've never had a client at the end of the day say, well, that was too expensive. Everyone is like, that is the best money that I've ever spent, because they're sitting in a chair, enjoying a glass of wine, not really stressed. All of their stuff is put away. And so they're able to continue on with like this next chapter in your new home rather than like you're left with just boxes and boxes and now you've got like months and months of like trying to settle and then trying to figure out like where's this next step.
Got it. And now we have a much better understanding of how you work and how you're different. Well, let's dive a little bit into the business. How are leads coming to you today? Is it referrals, estate planners, realtors, social? How are you finding new business or business?
Yeah. So we have surprisingly and not surprisingly, we have a lot of repeat clients that come. That's a big part of our business referrals. But then we've got a ton of word of mouth. We work with a ton of senior living communities. I will say that's where the majority of our referrals come from because they're moving into senior living. And so they're calling us. We also do a little bit, we have a little bit of estate referrals from like estate plans and things like that, and then real estate companies as well. We've started actually doing a bigger presence online and more Google ads and social and things like that. And actually, we've definitely seen a big uptick in that as well. We're trying to, that's the hardest thing to track, as we all know, because when something comes in from online, you don't know which source unless the person specifically says, this is what I saw and where. But we are noticing our online traffic is really upping, and our leads that come in through our email through the website have really been up quite a bit.
And do you find those people are typically just searching for movers and then they find you that way?
So, majority, yes. I will say it's probably like a 60-40 where they are looking for a manager, 40% just looking for movers. But the thing that we love is when people are looking at us as just movers, when we talk to them on the phone and we start really digging and asking questions about their move, well, like, what about this and what about that? And tell me about this. Then they start to, it opens their mind into, wow, no, you're right. I do need more than movers. I don't want to manage this or that, or I've got, a 5,000 pound safe in the basement. Like, that has to come with us. Okay, well, we can't just pick that up and carry it upstairs. We're going to have to, get something else behind that. And so usually what happens is once we talk to people on the phone, we end up going out and they end up hiring us for more than what they expected when they first contacted us because we educated them on the process, and now they're making a more educated decision.
And by the way, you're in the Denver area. How wide geography wise do you serve in either the state or the area?
So, for those who are in Denver or know the Denver metro area, it's huge. I mean, we serve a very large range, and really the best way to look at it is from like north to south. So, basically, we go from Fort Collins all the way down to Colorado Springs, which is a very large area, which is pretty much the majority of not the Colorado because you've got a little more east and west, but a very large majority of the Denver area, plus going outside the city limits.
And I guess when we think about the marketing, if you had more budget or time, what marketing engine do you think you would double down on at this point?
So this is something that we've really tried hard this last year, is that we've realized our perfect market that we would love to get into is we want to get in front of people even before they're thinking about moving. Moving is not on their radar, but at some point, really everybody is our client because everybody moves at some point in their life for one reason or another. And so we want to be able to get in front of those people even before that, because then when they do decide to move, they can, like I said, they can make a more educated decision on how they want to move. Do they want to be super involved? Do they not? Do they have the time? What resources do they need? If sky's the limits, we would love to be able to tap more into markets that get us in front of those people. And I don't know if it's radio. We've kind of been dabbling in radio, TV, magazine ads to see how do we get in front of them. We've also looked at different associations as far as like real estate associations to be able to get in front of more real estate agents, because really they're kind of the first stop, right? You start thinking about moving and they're the ones you call, or everyone knows a real estate agent. So, they're a friend, they're a family, and things like that. So there's kind of a whole list. So if you have any secret ideas of getting in front.
I have ideas about, content market. It almost seems like content marketing and education prior, which you do with That I think it could be a really interesting approach. One thing I was thinking about as you were speaking, though, is your client sometimes the children of the parents, or is it the retirees calling, or a mix?
So it's a mix. I would say majority, probably 80% are more the physical clients, the seniors, the retirees, and then, a smaller 20, 10 to 20% are the adult children that are taking over because mom or dad can't make the decision, or mom or dad are just too overwhelmed. And so they're starting to get involved.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting approach too of your marketing, speaking to different audiences there.
Mm-hmm.
Or children who live in another state who can't, I don't want to say can't be bothered, but traveling to help their parents move is not of interest.
Right, because majority of the adult children that we're working with, they're in that sandwich generation where they have their parents and then they have their kids, right? So they're being pulled in every which direction. Like I've got young kids and my parents are just kind of coming into that aging. My brother and I are having some conversations, but I couldn't imagine if I had to manage my parents day to day or just even have to check in with them day to day when I'm already like the Uber for three children. So like that's my joke is I'm just like an Uber. My Uber shift starts at 4 and it ends at 9. And that's all I'm doing in the afternoons. And so then to have to like tack on, kind of not helping my parents, but like really caring for them. Like that's where we really come in and we're strategic because we're like, hey, especially when you're out of state, like, hey, let us be the boots on the ground and we'll communicate and coordinate with you the whole way. And then if you do want to come into town, great. This is when you come into town, but you don't have to do all this work. You're there more to like be the support and be that emotion for your parents rather than kind of try to do both.
So let's switch gears a little bit to the sales and service process. Our founders love to hear this because it's complicated, especially in the home services space, and being flawless is everyone's goal. So walk us through a typical client journey from your first inquiry to a consultation to project execution to the post-move follow-up. What are the major steps from inquiry to consultation to the project to the follow-up?
Yep. So first steps, obviously we go into the home, we take a look and say, okay, 9 times out of 10 people are moving. So, okay, you're moving from here to here. What's the goal? What do you want to take with you? What do you not? What services do we need? So let's say, and most of our clients utilize all of our services. So, okay, great. We're going from, 5,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet. We're going to come in, we're going to do a floor plan with you so we can figure out exactly which furniture we're going to take with us so that we're not overpacking the place. We're going to come, we're going to sort with the client and figure out, go through papers and cabinets and all of this stuff to figure out the stuff that's going. Because the biggest thing is, we never want to leave a client with 5 tables and 20 lamps, right? You can't, and then you just got lamps all over the floors. And so we really think methodically through the household items that are going as well and how much can fit in cabinets and measuring square footage and things like that. So we'll downsize, figure out what they're going to take with them. We physically will coordinate all that doesn't go. So whether we're donating, whether we're trying to sell, clean out, junk removal, whatever. So that piece is all being taken care of. And then we come in, we pack, we move the client, and then we unpack them and get them all settled, everything back into cabinets, cupboards, pictures hung, bed made, so that at the end of the move it's done, they're settled, there's not boxes to be undone, and they can just continue or like this next chapter of their life. And usually this span, the moving and down, like the sorting time takes a little bit more, like we can sort from anywhere from a day to a month, depending on how big the scope is. But really that downsizing, packing, moving, and unpacking, we can do anywhere. That's usually a 3-day process. So we're kind of taking everything out of the home that's not going with us. We're packing, we're moving, and we're unpacking. So we can do a lot in a really short amount of time that most people look at us and think we have 3 heads. But once we get going, they see our processes and they're like, oh, wow, you really do know what you're doing. And you can do this in that short amount of time.
Yeah. What would you say throughout that process, though? It is complicated and it sounds like you have it down to a science, but where is the most friction or drop off in that journey?
So it's usually like that loading of the truck day, because a lot of times what starts to happen is people start to feel this like, I really want to let go of stuff, but wait, it's actually going somewhere. So that's where people start to add on stuff, and we're like, hold on, we're taking too much. We got to stop. We can't keep, taking this kind of stuff. And it's almost this like, it's a really interesting. I had someone who does, we don't really deal with hoarders too much. And I have a guy that I'm really good friends with who deals with just with hoarding. And a lot of times what happen is people let go of stuff and they feel good about it. And then we move them into this space and it's smaller and they've taken everything that they want to take with them. And then the next day they have this regret, like, oh my gosh, I just let go of all of this stuff. And they start to kind of pedal backwards. But then in the next couple days, they start to live in their space and they start to realize, like, actually, no, that is what I wanted. So it's kind of like a buyer's remorse thing where, like, you go out and you try to buy a couch and you find the most expensive one and you're like, ooh, that's expensive. But you're like, yeah, I really want it. And then you have the buyer's remorse and then it's delivered to your house and you're like, ooh, I don't know, maybe this wasn't a great decision. But then you sit in it for a couple days and you're like, yeah, that was a good decision. And so it's usually like, kind of that as it's starting to move, people kind of start to panic because they're like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then it's also that back end, once they do get settled, they're like, no, this is real. I did do this. But if you keep going forward, again, all of our clients will always go, I should have done this sooner. And really, a lot of our clients call us even after the move, a month, 2 months, 6 months later, and go, hey, can you come back again? Because I want to downsize even more. I realize now I took way too much.
And with so many moving parts, what tools or systems running behind the scenes for scheduling to quoting to client onboard to job tracking? How automated is that for you, or is it still pretty manual?
So, a lot of it is pretty manual. We do have a full time office manager who's answering the phones, doing all of our scheduling, handling all of our billing and invoicing. We do have part of the job is that a manager is assigned to every single job who's on site all the time in communication with the client. And then but every time the client calls, that's when our office manager, Amy, is going to pick up and kind of answer it. So, we obviously have our CRMs and our back end systems and accounting softwares that really help with that. But the thing about this business that I think AI can't replace is the human connection and the human touch that people need in high stress situations. And so that's where Amy really comes into play in our managers.
Yeah, no, it's great to have that touch, the human touch there. I think is really important. And then I think when we talk to founders, where we'll see advantages with AI is it frees up time for actually more of that on
Mm-hmm.
some of the more mundane tasks. What about like your follow-up reminders or photo documentation? How is that managed at this point? Is that
Yeah, so
texting or?
Yep. So after we leave the client's house, they always get, it's typically an email or a phone call if our clients aren't very tech savvy, just a survey that we send saying, hey, how did we do? Be able to get really that feedback from them. So we do that. A lot of times our managers will call and just, call a couple days, a week later, hey, how's it going? How's it settled? Everything like that. And then at that time, usually there's not too many things that come up, but sometimes people, oh, my table's a little bit to the left. And we're like, oh, next time we're out by your house, we'll come move it over, and little tweaks and stuff like that. Cause there's always, while we try to say we'll get it perfect and everything in its exact spot, you live in stuff and you're like, yeah, that picture frame's a little crooked. We got to move it kind of thing.
That's no, that's I totally understand that. What as we look a little bit to the future, what do you see as the biggest growth opportunity for your business and maybe even the industry over the next 12 to 18 months?
You kind of hit it from the beginning. The senior industry, a lot of people are merging into this market because they're kind of looking at the dollars and cents and realizing that there's a lot to be had and there's a lot of work to go around between the baby boomers and the upcoming generations. I think what's next is honestly for us, it's really just growing, being more strategic. We are really trying to take a better front, especially in Colorado, to be the industry leaders of move management. We want to be the next experts. There's people in our national association that are the OGs that started this, that we're really the experts in it. And so they're kind of looking at us going, okay, now we're ready to pass the baton. So just kind of on a more high level, like we really just want to be those that are out there, we're educating, we're letting people know about our industry, and also helping to create regulations. Our industry is not regulated, and there's not a lot of barrier to entry into it. And so there's a lot of people coming into it with dollars and cents in their eyes that is really not a great avenue to go down, because a lot of times we hear kind of the ethics and we hear the things that are starting to happen. And so we're trying to really push for those regulations and really try to be the people that they're coming to us going, hey, what about this? What about that? How do we do this type of situation? Really be the leaders of it.
Sounds like a real differentiator for you as well. Unfortunately, that's the case, but it really is from everything you're telling me.
Right.
That's great. Well, why don't as we wrap up here, if you had one piece of advice for someone either looking to start a business or an owner who's maybe not as far along as you know, to scale a business like yours, what type of advice do you have for someone earlier in the game or looking to get in this home service or service business world?
I will say the biggest part of this, people come into it thinking, I can do this, no problem. You know, I'm going to hire all these people and I'm just going to sit and manage and do it. And there's so much that when I first took over the company, I did everything. And obviously I did everything because I couldn't afford to hire people at that point. But the level of understanding that I got from my company for my company in doing everything, like I think that in this industry there is so much to learn, and people kind of come into it thinking, oh, organizing and moving is not hard, I can figure that piece out. But I would really caution people to not just jump in and start to hire people on this higher level, but really kind of start from the basics and come up. Because it's what we're kind of seeing is when people try to jump in at that high level, they're actually not making it because there's too much that they are not doing correctly that's actually really hurting them. And so it's kind of that old school, like, I don't remember that show, but the name of it, but there was that show where like the CEO would go into like the workers level and like undercover boss. That's what it was. Yeah. You know, and they learned so much more about their company and the people and the culture. And it's like that actually made their company flourish more than it did like keep going. And so I think there's a lot about that, because in a service high touch industry where it's not a name that really makes the company, it's who is running it makes the company, because of the culture, because of that touchy-feely. You really have got to start at the bottom and just know that it's not a quick up. It's going to take years, but you can get there for sure.
I love that. I love that advice. Well, to close, just let our audience know where they can find you, and you know, if they're in the Denver area.
Yeah. So especially in the Denver area, but we can handle if someone's going from Colorado to a different state as well. We can help manage all of those or coming in. But a move handled with care, you can find us online at movehandledwithcare.com. All of our information's there, email, phone number, and everything. We also are on social media, A Move Handled with Care, and then we also do have a podcast as well called Making Space For, that's on the YouTube and Spotify platforms. And that's really great. It kind of dives into a lot more information about move management and also just different industry partners and things like that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we hope to have you back soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good one. And thanks to everyone for joining. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.